Good morning, vlog. It is Sunday, February 23rd, and it's turning out to be a good day so far. I woke up late, but getting some extra rest in, I guess. Getting ready for church this morning, so I'm dressed up a little bit more for some reason. Actually, I'm just short on laundry right now, but I took a shower this morning, and I had, how your brain can work better, I guess, because you're doing a different task and it's organizing your thoughts differently. And so you come up with some different ideas, even while you're in the shower or while driving or doing some other tasks like that. That's why it's called, I don't know if you've ever heard the term of shower thoughts before, but I had a shower thought while I was in the shower this morning. And it was revolving around an idea for a podcast that I have, that I've been working on for quite a while. It's just my own personal podcast show, my own internet radio show in a way. And I got onto the subject of what kind of content I would make for the podcast, because I don't really have any particular one niche to drill into, or at least it hasn't hit me in the face yet to realize, like, bam, that's what you need to do. And so I'm just thinking, okay, well, what can I go ahead and just talk about? What can I educate people about? What can I talk about that I enjoy and that I may want to share with others? And then I got onto the topic of music, and in specific mashups. And there's a mashup group online that I've been following for years, and every year they release a new mashup album at the end of the year. And I find that, like, I really like a few songs from each one, or maybe I like the entire album, but I definitely have been wanting to make some sort of series where either I rank them or just talk about, say, like, the top 10 songs from the series that I really like. And then I can, like, kind of drill down to say, like, okay, well, these are the songs that are featured in the mashup. This is the specific hook that they use, and that's why it captivates me, or why I enjoy it, or it evokes this kind of memory or emotion in me. So just kind of doing that type of top 10 deal in for this mashup series. And so that got me thinking, well, if I do a top 10 and say this is a weekly podcast, then that would be 10 full weeks of content that I have, and I can get ready to go. So there we go. There are 10 episodes that I already have basically kind of already in my mind, and now I'm saying it on video, just as kind of like also a note taking for me to reference later, I guess, of just content that I could make and put into the queue for later shows. Because that's one thing that I really also want to get better in practice of doing, is making multiple episodes and scheduling them out for future. So that way I don't always have, an impending deadline of, if I miss it, then I don't release a show that week, because that isn't good on a consistency basis. So for example, if something does come up and I do have to miss a deadline, I still have weeks ahead in order to correct it and get it out and schedule and make sure I get back on track in time. And that's something I've been trying to do with my podcast at church, Messiah's Upper Room podcast, rather, where we record episodes like about 2 or 3 weeks in advance. That way, that gives me plenty of time to edit it, send it off to pastor for approval. Once he approves it, then we can schedule it. It would give me more time to think about the copy that I'm writing for summary of the discussion that day. And so that's just a practice that I've been trying to get more. That's just a practice that I've been trying to get more and more into. And we're coming up on that area again, where we'll reach a transition period where we'll get a few episodes ahead in terms of talking in class versus releasing on the podcast, because we're about to end our series on the 10 Commandments. I think we're doing the 8th commandment today, which leaves us 2 final commandments if we finish the 8th commandment today. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing this morning. But now it is just about time to get to church, or at least go on the way. And depending on my wife's mood, we may grab some coffee along the way. We were able to grab some coffee this morning. I forgot to grind my coffee beans, so I had to grab my own cup, unfortunately, but that's okay. And my wife is happy with her coffee. I take mine just black, no cream or sugar. Life's too short for cream and sugar, but my wife really likes the sweet ones.
I guess that's why she married me.
But the idea is to get in here at church and get the equipment set up for our guest speaker today, and make sure she knows just the process on how to operate all the stuff, and so she can start the recording herself and stop the recording herself. And that'll pretty much be it. We got the podcast equipment set up. We are ready to go for today's lesson. And I'm just sitting here in the back of class next to the audio system that they use to project the speaker's voice throughout the class. So we have some speakers all throughout the room, because it's a fairly big room. It can hold about 120 people, but not all can really hear the speaker all that well. That's why we have this PA system here. We have the wireless receiver there, and just a small kind of karaoke system right here that we use as the PA system. It works. Pastor Audie likes to print out some notes and whatnot for the day's Bible lesson. So here's a copy that I have, and we have our guest speaker, and we're at session 24 of the 10 Commandments. So it's our series length is over twice the length of the commandments themselves. And yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and I for one am very thankful that we do such a deep dive and go about so carefully throughout all these Bible verses that we do, because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to dissect and discuss and make sure everyone has a full understanding of. Had to duck out of the class a little early so I can go to the sanctuary and get the soundboard ready so we can do a sound check before late service. Finished up with late service, and now I'm having to run back over to the classroom so I can grab the audio files so I can edit the podcast for this coming week and get that posted. So I need to swap out the SD cards and the recorder that we use, just so we have something prepared for next week for when we need to record again. So this is about the size of the classroom that we do our Sunday, our Messiah Upper Room podcast in. There we go. And there are about 100 people, or 100, maybe 120, I don't know, that come in here and participate in the class each day, or each Sunday, I should say. And sometimes there are some extra things written on the board that are not in the notes that we have each week. So we have our notes here that are printed out, and I get a digital file each week from Pastor that I then upload in addition to the podcast as show notes on the podcast. There's a link inside the show notes. If you're familiar with a podcast application, you can actually see show notes that are describing the episode. You can actually put hyperlinks in there, and I just added as a hyperlink so you can actually go and get a PDF of the notes each week when we post a new episode. But sometimes I need to do some modifications, because we were talking about a few different things. This may be backwards whenever I post it later, but we were talking about a think mentality with respect to gossip and bearing false witness in the lesson today. And that's just something that I need to make sure that's included in the show notes for this coming week, because since our associate pastor is out of town this week, he sent out the show notes in advance, so I can actually format them, make some modifications if needed, and get those ready for posting when we do record those episodes. And I just wanted to double check real quick to see whether we actually started the recording. I always have a paranoia that that the recording button wasn't pressed, or that the batteries on the recorder die. I usually try to make sure that there are fresh batteries inside the recorder every single week, because the batteries did die one Sunday, and that was not pleasant. I can link probably to the exact episode where it happened. I did like a whole apology intro and everything. But anyway, I usually get the recorder, and it has a speaker on it as well, so you can actually preview it. So let me hit play here.
What we're studying today is the 8th commandment.
There we go.
And you can see on here it says,
And so it's about 53 minutes in length. That will probably run me about 2 hours to fully edit, I think, if I go really in depth into editing it. But for right now, I'm going to swap out the SD card on the recorder and swap out the batteries as well, because I always like to make sure that there are fresh batteries ready to go for next week, especially since I may not be able to attend the Bible class for next week. And so normally what I do before class, I make sure that the batteries that are already, the spare batteries that we have, are already fully charged. The lights are off on this, so that means these batteries are fully charged and ready to go, and I'm ready to just swap these out basically. Now, I don't want to go for too long without putting in batteries on the unit, because the recorder unit will actually lose memory of the time and date if batteries are outside of it for too long, if it goes without for batteries for too long. And so I usually like to make sure that I have the fresh batteries already in here, just so we don't lose the timing and dating, because then that affects when the files that it records, when the creation date is affected, because it defaults down to the year 2000, January 1st of 2000, when the time resets, and you have to manually reset it inside the device itself whenever you turn it on. And when it comes to the body pack, I can usually let that stay for about like 2 or 3 weeks before I change the batteries on it, because the body pack doesn't really drain that much power, and it's only used for about an hour each week. So there's already 2 bars on the batteries that I have in there. What I'm most concerned about is the recorder. But then again, if the batteries go out on the microphone itself, then it doesn't really matter if I have batteries for the recorder. But anyway, point is, the batteries last longer in the body pack than they do on the recorder. So once I have the batteries swapped out from the recorder, at least, I just go over here, plug it in, and the light's coming on. That means they're charging, and we will be good to go for next week. We'll have freshly charged batteries for next week. Actually, those batteries will be charged by the end of by probably the next couple of hours. But that wall unit is it has some smart technology in it that will just stop charging batteries once they're at the optimum level. So that's why I can go ahead and just leave this here. At the very least, I'll come back on Wednesday during our rehearsal, and I can check those out and swap them out if need be. I was so concerned about the batteries that I almost forgot to swap out the SD card. So the SD card on this unit is just on the side here. It's under a little flap, and all you have to do is press in on it to bring it out. So that's the one that I'll be taking home with me. And this is a fresh 4 gigabyte blank SD card that I'm putting in here. The previous one that I took out was actually 32 gigabytes, so I can go a couple of weeks with this one if need be. But actually, it'll be fine. Anyway, I don't know where I was going to with that point. The audio files that we make for about a 1 hour recording on this device go for about 1 gigabyte. They're about 500 megabytes for each audio track that we're recording, and we're recording 2 audio tracks on this recorder here. These 2 microphones up here are 1 track, and these 2 inputs down here are a second audio track. And since we're recording 2 audio tracks at the same time, that's double the data, and the wave format that it uses for about an audio for a recording of about 1 hour in length, it comes out to about almost 550 megabytes per track. But we have a 4 gigabyte SD card in the recorder right now, meaning that it should be good theoretically for at least 2 weeks. We could probably extend it to 3, but I usually just change out the SD card every week just to make sure I have the latest podcast recording, and B, that we always have plenty of space to record. Now that I have all that put up and away, it is time to go and get some lunch somewhere. We're getting some dinner at a barbecue place in Frisco, more rather lunch, and it is busy. That's the sign of a good barbecue place, is when there's a line out the door. We just now got inside after waiting outside for about maybe 15-20 minutes. It's so beautiful. The brisket, the meat, the deliciousness. Oh, that's so pretty. Back home finally after church and lunch, and now I am thinking what exactly I'm going to be doing for the rest of the afternoon. I guess just preparing for the next week, and probably cleaning up some of the CD cases that I have, some of the CD albums rather, cleaning that up because there's like a small layer of dust and other stuff just from years of sitting around idle, and also cleaning some of the stuffed animals and whatnot, that the toys that I have, trying to get ready to sell, and that they'll be in an acceptable condition for whoever receives them next. Also, if I get inspired, I may just go ahead and write my blog post a little bit more, try and finish that up. I probably want to try and get that posted sometime during the next week. So that's another thing that's kicking around in the back of my head as well. In my preparation for next week, I am grinding my coffee beans in advance, some of the coffee beans anyway. And I just really wanted to take a second to show the beans beforehand, because I really like how these beans look. I know it's weird, but I can appreciate coffee, especially well-roasted coffee and good tasting coffee. So I have a container that I like to put whole coffee beans in, because it is solid and it doesn't allow light in. You don't want to let light into your coffee bean to touch your coffee beans. It affects the taste. But if I can get these coffee beans a little bit closer, you see how shiny they are? You can see some of the oils just kind of accumulating onto the top of the coffee bean. Especially see it shine off right there. It's so delicious. And even though these are older roasted coffee beans, I imagine they're still going to taste pretty good. But the main reason why I want to get over and done with this bag is so I can get a new, fresher bag of the same coffee. And I'm just doing little grinding batches in my Magic Bullet to help grind the coffee beans up into the consistency that I want. Since it's just this flat blade here on my Magic Bullet, I don't really have that much control over the granularity, but I make it pretty fine anyway, just because that's how I accidentally do it. So I just learned to drink coffee that way. And so here are the coffee beans after I've ground it. It has a nice color, nice darker color. I like darker roasts, at least from this company. And this would be good for, typically this fine of grain it would typically be better for an espresso machine. Typically the larger grains are for things like pour over, or your French press would be the most coarse ground, or even you want a coarser ground for your drip coffee maker. But anyway, I have about 3/4 of this 1 pound bag done. My Magic Bullet is getting a little bit hotter. I don't want to run it too much and potentially burn out the motor. So I'm just going to finish for right now. This will be plenty of coffee to get me through probably multiple weeks. And yeah, then I'll just finish grinding up the remainder of the coffee beans later. And in case anyone's curious, I don't know where exactly they sell this type of, where the roaster sells this particular type of coffee, wherever you may be. But for me, I pick it up at Central Market. And if I remember correctly, last time I got it, it was somewhere around like maybe $14 or $15 for a pound. So yeah, that's something to consider in case you're curious. Or if you want to step up your coffee game.